Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Rod. It's absolutely brilliant to have you here.
Oh, let's have some fun today. I'm excited to get into things.
Brilliant. So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask all my guests. What is your money story?
Well, my money story goes way back. Okay, so we're going to start my money story when I was 6 years old, and I immigrated with my mother and my mother's Vantje and my brother Albert from the Netherlands. I was born in the Netherlands, and so we immigrated in 1966. We ended up in Denver, Colorado, in the States. And the only memory I have of that trip is my mom crying when the ship entered New York Harbor and she saw the Statue of Liberty. True story, because I was scared that she was crying. And we really struggled growing up, so we didn't have much. I remember we actually shopped at an expired food store. Believe it or not, they had that back then. And we always bought old bread, and we drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And I remember wearing hand-me-down clothes from stores called the Salvation Army here in the States and Goodwill, really until I was 14 and got disgusted. I was tall for my age when I was 14. I lied about my age at Burger King so I could get a job flipping burgers so I could buy my own clothes. And then when I was 15, I was able to use that money to buy a car. And now I'm sure you've got listeners that have had it harder than I did. And, and maybe, I think in what's coming economically, frankly, worldwide, I believe, I think that we're going to see a lot of suffering economically, even more than we've seen in the past. But back then I knew I wanted more. And luckily my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she actually babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat and have things. And we always had a house full of kids. And she became a bit of an entrepreneur with her babysitting money. So she invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs. And she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us. She bought from a family named the Jewels. For about $30,000 when I was 14. Then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep, that it had gone up in value of $20,000. And I said, "What? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate." So I got into real estate, and well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000, still living at home. Second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 80 was some real money. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a man. I was actually dating his daughter, and he taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the technical stuff that we talk about on our shows, Lesley. And so fast forward to today. I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long term. I now own thousands of apartment units. I've actually built 27 businesses so far in my career. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, sometimes God will give you a nice little smackdown.
Yep.
Well, that was 2008 and 9. I lost $50 million conservatively in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and, at my events, my live events, I stand in front of thousands of people a year, is really the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And then maybe certainly as important, maybe more importantly, the mindset it took to recover from losing $50 million. And so I'm happy to drill down on that with you if you like.
Talk me through how you felt on the day that you discovered you had lost $50 million. How did you feel?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was horrible. I thought I was set for life. I had 800 houses. I had multiple apartment complexes, and I really thought I was set for life. And I wasn't. And I'd gone through a divorce a few years prior, and no, it was really bad. And, I remember the worst day was the day, I lost my house. I'd built this $8 million house on the beach. It was an incredible, spectacular home. I had the beach on one side, my boat's on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It was like a slice through an island. And I lost that in all the craziness. And I remember sitting in my living room one day and I saw a tow truck come pull my Mercedes away. and I just started laughing. How sometimes the worst day of your life can be the best. And it really was. And I picked myself up. And so, what I did to recover from all that, I went was I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it. In fact, if you come to one of my boot camps, I've got one coming up in September in Orlando. If you come to one of my boot camps, the first thing we do is goal setting. I call it goal setting on steroids, because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is, right? You've got to know what it is you want and why you want it. And so, that was the first thing, because it's real easy when something negative happens to you to focus on the pain. In fact, we connect through pain. It's silly. Like if you came up to me and said, "How you doing?" I said, "Oh my God, I am freaking fantastic. Life is amazing." You take a couple steps back and say, "Rod's off his meds." But if you came up and said, "How you doing?" and I said, "Oh God, I slept terrible. My back hurts. I lost 20,000 in the market." You put your arm around me and say, "Oh, I feel you." But that's how we connect, which is really not a great thing. But, I will tell you that, getting clear on where I was headed again, and not letting the failure. I call them seminars, by the way. I don't call them failures. I call them seminars. That was a $50 million seminar. It was a big seminar and a very expensive seminar, and I will tell you, those 27 businesses I built, several worth tens of millions of dollars. I have 2 now that are, but most were spectacular flaming seminars. Okay. And, we actually fail our way to success, and that's just the truth of it. And I tell a story about a woman in Australia, a lady named Bronnie Ware, who was a hospice nurse, and so she took care of patients when they were about to die. And Lesley, she asked him a question. She asked, the question was, "Do you have any regrets?" And she wrote a book about it, something like The 5 Regrets of Dying.
Yeah,
and you know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. Yeah. So if you're listening and you're afraid of failure, I'm going to tell you, don't fear failure. You're now, if something fails, your vehicle fails, that's just that business may have failed, but you're not a failure. And that's very, very important, because some people will identify with the vehicle that they're using and make it part of their personality. That's bad. Yeah. Okay. You always have that separate, if your business fails, you're not a failure, but if you're going to fear anything, fear regret. Fear being in the same place a year from now that you are right now, unless you absolutely freaking love where you are right now. That's what I would tell you to fear. But so it starts with goals, Lesley. That's really the first piece, is getting very, very clear, because what goals do is they trigger something in your brain called your reticular activating system. And that's a subconscious filter. That's actually, when people kind of go insane, that filter gets messed up, and then they have too much stuff coming in there. But it also points you in the direction of what you think you're interested in subconsciously. Yeah. And it works for goals. And the greatest example of that subconscious filter is when you first buy a vehicle. You never really noticed them before, and then you buy one and you see them everywhere.
Oh, I've had that. Yeah.
Right. Were they there before? Yeah. Were they there? Of course they were. And that's your reticular activating system. And the same thing with your goals. So when you write your goals down, you are triggering that, and your brain points you in the direction of things that it thinks will help you achieve those. And that's why they're so powerful. But then, after you've gotten clear on your goals and written down why, by the way, let me mention this. If, I do this at my boot camps, and obviously if you're living in England, you're not going to fly to Orlando, or maybe you won't, but I do have a lot of students over there, by the way. But still, here's the thing. People spend more time planning a birthday party than they do designing their lives. And doing your goals is designing your life. And so I do a goal setting workshop every New Year's Day. I've done it for years. And it's at rodslinks.com, rods plural, links plural.com. If you go to the bottom, that's my link tree. If you go to the bottom is the goal setting workshop. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Go there, do the workshop. It's done here in this studio. It's got music. It's professionally done. Have your child, if they're over 10 years old, do it. Have your spouse do it. See how aligned you are with your spouse if you're headed the same direction. It's very, very powerful. So I hope you check me up on it. It's rodslinks.com. But so after you've done your goals, the next piece is you got to make a decision. And when I say decision, I don't mean dip your toe in the water. I don't mean 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, it is done. Okay. Like, so a great analogy or a metaphor for a decision would be, if you're going to attack the island, you're going to burn your ships because you're taking their darn ships home. Okay. That's a decision. Okay. But you got to do it. And sometimes that could be the most important decision of your life. Maybe you're stuck in a job that you don't love, and you need to do something more for yourself and your family. And so you've just got to push past fear. You've got to push past limiting beliefs. And that's the reason goals are so important as well, because they create what's called, you use them to create what's called a burning desire.
Yeah.
That's a description from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
You've got to have that burning desire, because that's how you take action. That's how you push through fear. That's how you push through those limiting beliefs to do it. And so let me talk about, and that's how you get uncomfortable. Okay. And so a lot of people are comfortable, and the comfort zone's a nice warm place, and nothing freaking grows there. Right. So you got to get uncomfortable. But let me share something with you. I've actually got a couple of props back here to just elaborate on limiting beliefs. So when I immigrated, I didn't speak English. Okay. I was 6 years old. I got thrown into school, and I found out what bullies were for the first time. So I got my butt kicked occasionally. I hadn't learned how to fight back yet. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these wooden shoes and these lederhosen the Germans wear for Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
So I got my butt kicked again, as you can imagine. And then, I had bullies that lived at the end of my street, and she would chase him off with a fly swatter. So the next day, Rod got his butt kicked again. And, I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? And a lot of people have these limiting beliefs, and, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. Woe is me. But see, here's the thing. There's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS. Because 99% of them are BS, okay? But something happened to us in our childhood, consciously or even subconsciously, and we believe they're real. So let me just say this to you. If you're consciously aware of a limiting belief that you have, whenever it comes up, pull it out into the daylight consciously and look at it with your adult rational mind and recognize that it's BS. And I will tell you, if you do that enough times, it will diminish and go away. But you've got to consciously pull it out. And so after a decision, the next piece is you've got to take your first step. And sometimes that can be the biggest step of your life. And, Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith and the next step will be revealed. Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you've got to take that step. And it can be a scary step. And I will tell you a good analogy for that is I see it with my students. I have coaching students. They're called my warriors, and about 1,200 of them right now. And I'm going to brag for a minute. I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 170,000 apartment units now. I'm very, very proud of that. But an example of a first step is I see it with my students. They're complaining because they don't have their first deal yet. It's 4 months, it's 6 months, it's 8 months. Sometimes it's even as long as a year, and they haven't got their first deal. Then they get one, and I turn around. The next thing they have 3. Because they realized it was all mental. It was all in between their ears was the blockage.
They created the evidence. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all they needed.
Yeah.
And so, but you got to take that first step. And, in my business, I teach people how to buy apartment complexes. That's what I do. That's what my podcast, I have the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world. We're about to hit 17 million downloads. And that's what I do. And I love it. And it's my passion. And, I see that law of the first deal all the time. And in our business, a lot of our very successful people are very analytical. And you know who you are if you're listening. If you're analytical, you know who you are. And you know how very often you feel like you have to check off every single box before you make a move. Well, you can't do that here, okay? You have to recognize that you will not see the whole path, but you have to make a move, okay? And that's the only way you're going to get started. Otherwise, you'll never start. You'll get caught in a paralysis by analysis. And so, let me give you an analogy for this. You can drive all the way across the UK at night with your headlights only seeing 50, 60 feet in front of you. Now, you'll make it. You may have some obstacles, but other people have done it before you. It's the same way with your goals, but you have to get started. And so that next piece is the first step. And then, after that, and please stop me at any time here because I'll just keep going. But the next piece after your first step is I would encourage you to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. People will tell you to build your weaknesses, and I completely disagree. Especially, in this business, I teach that in multifamily real estate is there are a lot of different hats you can wear. It's a team sport. So there are different pieces. Like we need an analytical person, an underwriter to underwrite the deals. That's it, because it's primarily numbers. Buying apartment complexes is numbers. If you get the numbers right and you ask all the right questions, it's pretty hard to make a big mistake. So it's empirical. But so you need somebody that's analytical. You also need a mouthpiece like Rod that builds relationships with investors and brokers, real estate brokers and sellers and so on and so forth. So you need that as well. You need a process person, somebody that to manage the asset after you buy it, that manages the management company. And so, a lot of hats you can wear, but you want to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing to your strengths, first of all, you love what you're doing because you're good at it. So you love it. And so you never work another day in your life. Work is play, right? So there's that. And when you're playing to your strengths, if you have a bump in the road or a setback, you push through it because you're loving what you're doing. It's not a big deal. You're more innovative and creative if you're playing to your strengths. But the big one is you're passionate. Because if you're loving what you're doing, you're passionate. And I'm going to tell you, passion is required to influence people. If when people are around somebody, they can tell is passionate in what they do, they're influenced by them.
Exactly. And they flock to them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so when you love what you do, you have that passion.
Absolutely. What I would love to drill into, because I think it's really important for people to understand that you can hit rock bottom. There is a time where you find it hard to move forward. What was your motivation? What was the positive trigger that got you back into action? Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I will tell you, this is an important conversation because we are heading into an economic you-know-what storm, okay? And it's coming. I'm just telling you, definitely in the States. Commercial real estate, we are going to see a lot more bank failures in the States. And I don't know how that parallels with the EU and Britain or any of that, but I think it's going to be a global thing because I'm going to tell you, the United States is headed for some serious pain. They may try to paint a rosy picture. The only thing that will save it is if they pump a few more $1 trillion in. And if they do that, inflation will get even worse. So it's almost like they don't know what they can do. Yeah. But there is a lot of bad debt right now in the commercial real estate space in the United States. A lot of debt that's coming due. The owners can't sell it. We've got a huge decline in sales and the interest rates have gone through the roof. So it's very, very difficult to get financing. You have to put a lot of money in. You have to buy caps for the interest rates, which are very, very expensive, and just on and on. And so there's 1.6 trillion in commercial debt coming due by the end of next year. And I don't know how a lot of those operators are not going to be able to pull out. And there's already trillions of dollars in office debt that's in default. So lots of pain coming. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm actually trying to get you excited because with crisis comes opportunity, and there will be incredible opportunity, at least here in the States. Again, I can't speak. I don't really track it internationally, but everything's going on sale. Certainly real estate, businesses, so I would tell you, if you're listening, I would tell you, pick a vehicle, decide quickly how you're going to capitalize on what's coming. If you're going to buy businesses, if you're going to buy real estate, maybe decide what asset class of real estate. Are you going to buy houses or apartments or self-storage or, I wouldn't buy office right now. People want to work from home, but maybe retail, industrial space, things of that nature. There's lots of different asset classes. Here in the States, we have mobile home parks and things of that nature. So decide how, maybe you're going to do it online, but decide what your vehicle is going to be to capitalize on the opportunities that are coming, because they are coming. I'm certain of it, at least in the States. Okay. Yeah. And as a Brit, you can absolutely invest in the States. And I've got students in England, in the Netherlands, in Turkey, in Israel, in Mexico, in Canada. So I've got students all over the country, all over the world rather. And so you can absolutely invest here. And typically what you do is you partner with somebody locally, but regardless of how you're going to do it, decide and get up to speed as quickly as you can, because it's coming. And if you try to learn it in the thick of it, it's going to be too late. Okay. And I'm massively getting ready. I have an opportunity fund I'm going to be raising money in. I'm in a lot of cash right now. I have access to a lot of cash through my students and my network. And I really believe exponential opportunity is coming. So that's what I would say. I would just say, get up to speed as quickly as you can. So I didn't answer your question, how I recovered and how I know. I don't know why I went off that side road there, but
I will tell you that it really was what I just said. I just decided I wasn't going to stay in my pity party. Sure, I hid under a rock for a few months with my eyeball poking out, feeling sorry for myself. But then I just said, hey, I need to get back to this. And so I realigned with what I wanted. I got very clear on my goals again. And that's really how I started. Then I decided no more focusing on the bad, focus on the good. And I started manifesting things into my life again. And, I bought in the last 3 years, I bought 5,000 apartment units. I mean, and I started my podcast. Kind of funny. I started my podcast 7 years ago, and I used to say, I'll never sell you anything, because I never meant to. I just wanted to add value and have a vehicle to raise money if I ever wanted to raise money. And now I'm a liar because I sell everything. I've got courses and coaching and everything else. I never planned to. You want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. And that's kind of what happened there. But anyway, let me mention a couple other points that I think are relevant. Well, first one, let's talk about focus, because that was a piece that came up back then too. Because you decide what you focus on, and whatever you focus on gets bigger, both positive or negative. Okay. And so don't get me started on the crap that's on the news right now, and it's almost all crap. Sorry about that word, but it is. It's complete BS. In many cases, you don't even know what to believe anymore. And so I hope you're smart enough to realize that, because some people are still in this bubble. They think what they see on the news is real, and it's not. Just remember this: the news organizations are not public service organizations. They are for profit, and they censor, and they lie, and they position things, and it's just ridiculous. And so, be careful right now. If you're listening to this, let me just say this. If you're listening to this or watching this, you're a leader, okay? And the world is going to need leaders more than ever in what's coming. And as a leader, you've got to manage your focus, and you got to keep out all that crap. You've got to stand guard at the door to your mind. You bring in the good stuff, and try, because again, whatever you focus on gets larger. They asked Mother Teresa when she was alive if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. See the metaphor there? And I get students that call me, really not students, they know better, but I get people that call me and they say, I'm trying to get out of student loan debt. And I said, wrong statement. You should be trying to make so much money that the debt's irrelevant. Okay. Again, it's kind of a play on words, but it's an important one. Yeah, it really is. It's focus. Yeah. And so, focus is clarity. And those that have the greatest degree of focus are the most successful people on the planet. And so, and focus is power. And so it's really, really important. Like I do a clip every week on my podcast. It's called Own Your Power. And it's a 5-minute clip with music. And I promise you, I don't care if you're interested in real estate or not, come check out my podcast. It's also at Rod's Links, or you can go to rodspodcast.com, but it's on Rod's Links. That's my podcast link is there, but check it out. You give me 5 minutes a week, I will juice you. I will motivate you. I promise. They're very powerful clips. And that's the reason my podcasts have been so successful. People don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And these episodes make you, and there's hundreds of them there, about every possible topic you can think of relating to mindset, motivation, and self-actualization. And so, I hope you'll check it out. My podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. But back to focus for a minute. I get excited about my podcast being at 17 million downloads. Well, I listen to 2 podcasts. I listen to Joe Rogan, his very big podcast here in the States, huge, biggest one, I think. Yeah. And another one is Tim Ferriss. And they are both sides of the aisle from the Democrats and the Republicans. And I'm very much on one side. I won't get into that, but I try to stay balanced. I try to listen to both sides just to try to have an even keel. And Tim Ferriss's show, he interviews some of the best people on the planet in their different walks of life. Best athletes here in the States, best actors, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hugh Jackman, Ed Norton, Jamie Foxx, billionaires like Ray Dalio, he's a huge billionaire in the States, and some of the CEOs of the largest companies in the world like Zuckerberg with Facebook or Meta. And I started to hear a pattern. What he does is he deconstructs their success. It's fascinating intellectual conversation. I don't believe in what he believes in politically, but I listen to him to, like I say, to have balance. But I started to hear a pattern, Lesley. Almost all of these super successful people meditate.
I know.
And what does meditation enhance? Your focus, right? Yeah. So focus is another big one. So I can stop and pause and take a breath if you have a question.
You are very
I've got lots more I want to talk about. But,
you are very, very American. And I think that...
Is it an American thing to keep blabbering? Is it?
So I wrote a question down because I think this will be an interesting almost what's the word I'm looking for? Almost not the opposite of what you have said, but what do you want to be better at?
What do I want to be better at?
Yeah. I wanted to flummox.
Enjoying life more instead of, and spending more time. I have a wife that is literally supermodel beautiful. And I don't say that lightly. Go check me out on social media. You'll see I'm telling the truth. And she happens to be more beautiful on the inside than the outside. And, really looking at life through more of a lifestyle filter. I mean, I love what I do so much that I get too sucked into it. Okay. And I spend too much time in it. And so, that's being completely vulnerable and honest is I really need to pull back a little bit from what I do, maybe hire someone to help me more at a high level and pull back from it. But that's in the cards. I'm actually looking for a COO right now, Chief Operations Officer. And so, that's in the cards. But so the next piece on my list of things that you do to achieve success and or recover from failure is your peer group. Okay. And I will tell you, when I was losing everything in 2008 and 9, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. He's a motivational speaker.
You may or may not be familiar with. Absolutely.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. Yeah. I know he's come to the UK a lot, but I used to be on his team. I was actually on his security detail for 8 years and followed him around the planet for 20 years. But so when I was losing everything, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. Okay. It says high level partnership. And back then it was about 130,000 for the year all in. Now it's more than that, a lot more. But I was around people that were killing it in 2008, 9. They were thriving. I mean, financially killing it. And, and they're like telling me, 50 million, schmillion, get up, you puss, go make something happen. Now, who do you want to be around when the what hits the fan, right? You want to be around people like that. Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you, the sad reality is most people really kind of default to a peer group of people they went to school with or people they work with. And sometimes those people haven't got your best interests at heart, because when you have a dream and you want to do something bigger than what you have, that dream is a fragile thread. And that thread can be broken quite easily if you're around the wrong people, because they're out of their fear or their limiting beliefs or their fear of losing you or their fear of being humiliated if you succeed or whatever. Will hold you back. And sometimes it's family. So I'm going to tell you, love your family, but choose your peers proactively. Get around people that want more. Like in my coaching program, my warriors, most of those 170,000 units were done between warriors. And that's a group. They push each other. They hold each other accountable. They praise each other. They're not afraid of other success. So get around a group like that in your town or start your own meetup group to talk about whatever you're interested in, whatever vehicle you're thinking about utilizing. But get around people that want more out of life because a rising tide lifts all ships. And if you're around people that are afraid of your success, they're going to hold you back. In fact, you show me your 3 best friends, I'll show you who you are in every aspect of your life, your health, your happiness, and your finances, because that's who you become. So choose carefully. So that's peer group. Very, very important.
Absolutely. So what drives you? What drives you, Rod? You're a successful man. You've got, plenty of money. You've got a beautiful wife. You've got, a number of successful students. What's driving you now?
That's a really good question. I do love what I do. I mean, I have a wall in my other office that has literally hundreds of thank you cards from students on it. And I'm really proud of it. I look at it, it's right to the right of or to the left of my desk. And I do get a tremendous amount of pleasure from seeing people become successful. And that may sound like hyperbole and like I'm trying to sell myself, and that's not it at all. I think anybody that gives, in fact, let me give you a story. Okay. This is going to take a minute, but it's really powerful. And I think your listeners will appreciate it. So, there's 2 pieces to this. The first one is gratitude. Let's talk about gratitude for a second. It's the most powerful emotion we have available to us. It's impossible, for example, to be fearful and grateful at the same time. It's impossible to be angry and grateful at the same time. Gratitude lowers our blood pressure, increases our immune system, brings us closer to our spirituality. It's how you manifest anything you want into your life. You do it through gratitude. That's how I've done it with vision boards and gratitude. I'm grateful for the things that I want as if I already have them. And that's how you bring things into your life. So that's number one. But I want to tell you a story. I told you about that house I built on the beach. So listen, when I was 18, it's like I lived in Denver, and Denver's in the middle of the United States, and there's no beach. But I knew I wanted to live on the beach. So I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf. And 20 years later, I built that $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach. And just to describe this place, I had a waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. Pool's in magazines. A giant spiral staircase up through the middle of the house, an elevator, wine cellar. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the spiral staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. So 2 months after I moved in, I worked for this thing for 20 years. Okay. I manifested, it took me 20 years, but I built this incredible home. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. Pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. I built that to prove the world I was good enough. Remember I said, how can I show that I'm good enough? Absolutely. I built that to prove the world I was good enough. And I mean, my beautiful family's inside sleeping. I had all the toys, the Maserati and the 2 Mercedes and the boats and the jet skis and all the crap. I had all that stuff. And I look up at this thing and I got depressed. And I don't mean just a little depressed. I mean, I was really depressed. And this is 2 months after I moved in. And there's some big messages here. The first one is, it's never about the goals. You need the goals to create that burning desire so you take action. But like they say, the happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat. You need the goals, but it's never about them. Happiness comes from progress and growth. And one of the things happening is I didn't know how I was going to grow. It's like, how do I move past this? I mean, I had achieved success like times 10,000, right? And so that was one piece. But the bigger piece, well, there's another piece too, is like, you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. I didn't have a vision for the future. I didn't know what I would do next. So that was another piece. But the biggest piece was I had been totally focused on me. Show the world I matter. Show Rod, blah, blah, blah. And that's the year I first met Tony, actually, Tony Robbins. I went to one of his events. I read part of a book of his, and I'm like, man, this is good stuff. I went and saw him live. And I discovered that he feeds families for the holidays. Now, he has fed millions. But I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. This is 23 years ago. I'm 63 now. I had to be 40 to get that memo. So I came home and I called my brother. I was going to go visit him in Denver. I was already living in Florida. I was going to go visit him in Denver for Thanksgiving. I said, bro, let's feed 5 families. So he called his church and he found 5 families that really needed help. We bought frozen turkeys and toys for the kids if they had them and big boxes of food. And the third family changed my life, Lesley. I go up to this home and it was a 1 bedroom. It wasn't even a 1 bedroom. It was a crappy 1 bedroom because you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. And there was a woman there, Hispanic woman with 5 children. So she comes out on the porch and she sees all this stuff that we had bought and she starts crying. And her children come out and they start crying. And then I start crying. And I'm hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 23 years, we have fed about 140,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida, where I live. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies for local children. Don't even have the basic supplies for school. Don't even get me started on that. And then we've done tens of thousands of teddy bears for local police officers to keep in their vehicles if they encounter a child that's been traumatized. They can comfort the child. Yeah. And I don't say this to brag, please know this, but see, in our society, and I think this is probably a worldwide phenomenon, we've been taught to achieve to be happy. Like we shouldn't be happy until we've achieved or reached some level of achievement. But I'm going to tell you, and this is a play on words, but it's an important one. If you give back in any fashion, you're happily achieving. Now, Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement is a science. If you want to learn something, go learn it. If you want to learn multifamily, come to my boot camp in September. I'll give you guys a fantastic deal if you want to come, $197. And that's not a sales pitch either for 3 days of training. But if you want to learn it, it's a science. I'll give you the blueprint and the map. You just got to go do it. Okay. But fulfillment is an art. Okay. And so you've got to pick what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's the animals or the environment or the elderly, whatever it is. Give back right now. Yeah. Now, if you're listening to this and you're young and you've got blood dripping from your teeth and you want success so bad, I'm going to tell you, and don't say, oh yeah, you had money, that's why you did it. No. If you want money, do it, because the money will come faster. That's the way God works or the universe works. Whatever you give, you get back 100-fold or 1,000-fold. You with me on this, Lesley? You agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so give back, and even if it's just of your time, because success will come faster, and you'll be fulfilled while you're achieving. You'll be happier. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that in before we cut off here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And, one of my pet hates is it's okay for them because I think that is such a anti-mindset, because you're just
that's a story. That's just a story, so you don't achieve anything. Yeah. That's a circuit breaker, so you don't feel terrible about yourself.
Exactly.
And I get hate every day on my social media. I mean, I get these guys that are so miserable that they try to diminish me because I've been successful, or they try to make fun of my wife. Oh, she's after you for your money. We've only been married 13 years. I didn't have a pot to pee in when she married me, but I get all that, and I feel sad for those people because they do that as a circuit breaker in a story so they don't feel horrible, and it's sad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So I don't know if I need to ask this question because you've kindly shared throughout the podcast. How can people connect with you, Rod?
Yeah, no, I will tell you, listen, I hope you'll check out my podcast at rodspodcast.com. But if you go to rodslinks.com, if you have any interest in real estate, you can even get my #1 best-selling book. You just pay the ship. Well, yeah, I think we'll even ship to the UK. Yeah. And so like for $6, okay. So it's kind of a no-brainer, but there's a lot of other free resources there. If you have a question about real estate, if you DM me on any social channel, I answer every single question. People are amazed. And sometimes like, is this a bot or is this one of your people? And I have to send them a picture in my underwear or whatever, it's me. Yes. Hi. But, but Rod's Links has a lot of free resources. There's my goal setting workshop. Go do that. For God's sakes, go do that. You should do it 2 or 3 times a year. I promise you'll be so juiced afterwards. And if you can come to Orlando to my boot camp, please come. I'll tell you what, if you when you go to Rod's Links, my boot camp website's at the top. If you want to come to learn real estate, if you use the code Lesley, I got to remember to tell my team, use the code Lesley, you can come for $197. And it's not a big sales pitch. I talk about my coaching for 30 minutes. All other 3 days is full-on training. It's the September 15th through the 17th. You will love it. In fact, if you don't love it, I'll give you your $197 back. It's never happened, but I don't mean like it. I mean love it.
Yeah.
People rave about it. The only complaint we ever get was the food sucked or the room was too cold or something like that. I've had thousands and thousands. The
content was fabulous.
Content was, yes, they say that. Yes. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
I have absolutely loved the conversation. I just love how American you are. And I wish you all the best.
I hope that's not an insult. I hope that's a compliment.
It's absolutely a compliment. And I hope you find that balance that you want as well in terms of your work and your home life as well. Thank you very much, Rod.